Have you ever felt like you were the absolute last person at work to hear about some major change? Yeah, it's a super common feeling. And it's usually because every office is secretly running two communication systems at the exact same time. You've got the official blueprint, and then you've got the much faster unofficial grapevine. Okay, let's dive into this and figure out how information really travels.
So let me just ask you this. What do you think is the most powerful communication network in your office? If your first thought is that official org chart, you might be in for a surprise. The real power, the real speed, often lies in a network that isn't written down anywhere.
All right, first things first, let's talk about the official rulebook. This is the formal system, the way companies design communication to flow in a nice, structured, orderly way. This is how it's all supposed to work on paper. And this is what we call formal communication. It's all about those official, authority-backed channels. Think about the memos you get from the CEO, those policy updates from HR, or direct instructions from your manager. There's a really clear chain of command and a pretty high degree of accountability.
So this formal system basically runs on three main highways. You've got vertical communication, that's the classic top-down, bottom-up flow of information. Then there's horizontal or lateral, which is just you talking to your colleagues at the same level to get work done. And finally, you have diagonal communication, which cuts across different teams and levels, like when a big project needs people from marketing, engineering, and sales all talking to each other.
But let's be real. That's the theory. That's the blueprint. Now let's talk about how information actually moves through an organization. Let's talk about the grapevine.
The grapevine is that completely informal network. It's spontaneous, it couldn't care less about job titles, and it runs entirely on personal relationships. Friendships, those chats by the coffee machine, shared inside jokes. It's just a natural and honestly an inevitable part of any workplace.
Now, when you put these two systems side by side, wow, the contrast is just huge. Formal communication is slow, it's deliberate, but it's generally accurate and reliable. The grapevine, on the other hand, is incredibly fast, but it's also completely unstructured, prone to rumors, and there is zero accountability. So you can see right away they serve completely different purposes.
So if the grapevine is this powerful, unstructured force, how does it even work? You might think it's just total chaos, but it's not completely random. Our source material shows it actually follows 4 distinct patterns.
First up, you've got the single-strand chain. This is literally like a game of telephone. Person A tells person B, who then tells person C, and on it goes. And just like that game, you can imagine how quickly the message can get twisted and distorted with this one.
Next is the gossip chain. In this one, you've got one person who acts as the central hub, sort of like a broadcast tower, just sending the information out to everyone they know. This pattern is really common for news that isn't directly related to work. Then there's the probability chain. This one is truly random. Information just bounces from person to person, totally based on chance encounters. It's usually for information that's kind of interesting, but not really mission critical. And finally, we have the most dominant, the most common pattern of them all, the cluster chain. This is where one person tells a few trusted colleagues, and then each of them tells their own little group of trusted contacts. This pattern brilliantly shows how information can just explode across a company so quickly and widely, yet still feel like a well-kept secret. This right here is the true engine of the grapevine. Okay, so whether a message is traveling through the official blueprint or the informal grapevine, things get lost. They get twisted. So let's move on and figure out how this happens by finding the common cracks in the whole communication process.
So here are some of the biggest culprits. And believe me, they pop up in both systems. Take filtering. Formally, a manager might only tell their boss the good parts of a client review. Informally, in the grapevine, someone might embellish a story to make it way more dramatic. Then there's information overload. We've all been there, right? Your inbox is overflowing. You just can't process one more official memo. That's a formal channel breaking down. We also do this thing called selective perception, where we basically just hear what we want to hear, whether it's in a company-wide email or a piece of gossip. And of course, emotion can completely hijack how we interpret a message. And finally, a lack of feedback. This is huge. It just means you're talking into the void with no idea if your carefully crafted directive or that juicy rumor you whispered was even understood correctly.
Okay, so communication is messy. I get it. But the good news is we can all get better at it. This next section is your personal toolkit for building way stronger connections at work.
Look, 4 simple steps can make a massive difference. First, use feedback.
Don't just fire off a message and assume it landed perfectly. Check for understanding. Make it a dialogue, not a monologue. Second, simplify your language. Please, just drop the corporate jargon and acronyms. Clear communication is effective communication. Third, practice empathy. Before you react to that email or that comment, just take 1 second to consider the other person's point of view. It can change everything. And finally, number 4, and this is the big one, listen actively. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. Actually hear what's being said, both verbally and non-verbally. It is the single best way to navigate the blueprint and the grapevine like a pro.
Now, I want to end on this fascinating, kind of shocking quote from our source material. It says that most employees find the grapevine more believable than official announcements from leadership. Just think about that for a second. Why? Well, probably because it's personal, it's fast, and a lot of the time it just feels more authentic.
So this leaves us with one final provocative question to chew on. We usually think of the grapevine as a source of negative gossip, right? But if it's faster and if people trust it more than the official channels, how could you, or maybe a manager, actually use it for good? Something to think about.